Hi, everybody. Welcome to our May Lunch and Learn. My name is Jennifer. I'm a nutrition coach here at Bandit CrossFit. And this month we're talking about sleep and how our success can really begin with our sleep. Could also possibly be the missing link in where you're not seeing success. So, did you know that researchers have found a treatment that has been shown to improve memory, increase brain functioning and concentration, improve your immune system, and even decrease the likelihood of dying in a car accident? What if I told you there are no documented negative side effects? Kind of sounds too good to be true, right? Well, I'm going to tell you that that treatment is sleep. We work under the umbrella of Healthy Steps Nutrition. And at Healthy Steps Nutrition, we believe that something as fundamental as nutrition shouldn't be complicated. We want to help you build a strong nutrition foundation so that you can start meeting some short-term and long-term goals to help you feel the way that you deserve and that you're wanting to feel. The Healthy Steps Nutrition Program has helped over 35,000 people all around the world to take control of their health. These are just some of their incredible success stories. Are you looking to create your own success story? While we know that it is simple, it is very far from easy. But there's one thing that all of these people had in common. They had a nutrition coach to help them look at the entire holistic approach, including stress management, nutrition, and you guessed it, they worked on their sleep. How many of you out there swear to me that you are functioning on only 4 to 6 hours of sleep? Well, research has found that most adults in the US are actually heavily sleep deprived. In today's nutrition talk, we are going to dive into why sleep is probably the missing puzzle piece in your health and wellness journey. I'm going to give you some tips to help you get more sleep and some of the incredible benefits that go along with doing so, with getting more sleep, right? So let's start with why sleep is so important to your overall health and wellness. When we start a health and wellness journey to achieve the goal of losing weight, getting stronger, or increasing your energy, or just trying to get more healthy to improve your health, most of us probably think about nutrition and fitness or fitness and nutrition. We probably typically think of both of those things in whatever order. Really, the first place that we want to start is with our sleep. That should be a part of your first thought. With chronic disease steadily increasing, many researchers have started to look at sleep as an integral piece of the puzzle. Insufficient sleep has been linked to an increased risk of diseases, including type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, obesity, and depression. So let's dive a little bit further into this. Did you know that your blood sugar increases while you're asleep? Interesting fact. It typically happens between 4 and 8 a.m. It is often referred to as the dawn effect. In a healthy individual without diabetes, insulin will be released, allowing our cells to take in the sugar. So, how does this tie into your sleep? Well, let me tell you, there's a study with more than 4,000 participants, and they found that those individuals who got less than 6 hours of sleep were more likely to have cells that were not as sensitive to insulin. While there's really not an answer for this, one explanation has described how getting less sleep will affect our body's hormone production. More specifically, if you stay up late or you don't get adequate sleep, your body will produce more cortisol, which affects how your insulin works. Even further, some researchers have described how a disruption to your circadian rhythm may also affect how your cells respond to insulin. Both of those lead to increased blood sugar and an increased risk for type 2 diabetes. Next, we'll talk about how a lack of sleep may increase the risk for cardiovascular disease. The Sleep Foundation stated that people who sleep less than 6 hours per night are at a 20% higher risk for heart attacks. That's a super scary statistic. Did you know that our sleep has different stages over the course of the night? There are two main stages, and one you've probably heard of, REM, REM sleep. The other is NREM, is a time when your heart rate and blood pressure increase, and REM is when both of those should decrease. Okay. According to the Sleep Foundation, an imbalance in these two stages can happen when you're not getting adequate sleep, and that will increase the risk for heart attacks. Lack of sleep for those who experience sleep disruptions may also be at risk for an increased risk for hypertension, stroke, arrhythmias, and coronary artery disease. Let's talk about obesity. A lack of proper sleep will also increase the risk of being obese. While these studies have linked this starting when our brains are developing as children, we're going to focus on how lack of sleep will affect us as adults. Think back to a time when you didn't get enough sleep. Maybe you feel that way right now. When you didn't get enough sleep, did you feel like you had more cravings? If you are thinking yes, there is an actual reason for this. When we're not getting enough sleep, cortisol in our bodies increase. We already talked about that. Another hormone, leptin, which makes us full, will actually decrease. And ghrelin, our hunger hormone, increases. So, in summary, we are prioritizing the storage of fat and water in our body due to that increased cortisol. We are less full and more hungry. The shift in all of these hormones due to lack of sleep may increase cravings and your overall consumption. No wonder lack of sleep increases our chance of being overweight. Lastly, I mentioned how lack of sleep may increase the likelihood of being depressed. There was a study in 2011 that found that people with sleep issues, such as insomnia, had 2 times the risk for developing depression. More specifically, lack of sleep may cause changes to our serotonin, aka those happy hormones. Let's move into some tips for sleep success, probably why you came here today, right? In today's fast-paced world, it can feel almost impossible to get the proper amount of sleep. But I hope at this point I have opened your eyes to just how important sleep is. Sleep is just as important for health as your diet and exercise. You can't get healthy without healthy sleep habits, right? So let's dive into sleep recommendations and tips to help you start sleeping for success. How much? The golden question, right? There seems to be so much debate on how much sleep we need each night. In fact, there are many people who swear, and I see them all the time. They come in my office and I ask them how much sleep they get, and they'll tell me 4 or 5 hours. And they'll be like, but it's fine. I function like that. I feel great. However, research tells us that this is just not the case. A very small percentage of people can function on less than 8 hours. But sleep experts recommend that children get at least 9 hours of sleep each night. Teenagers should get between 8 and 10, and they love that sleep. And adults need at least 7 hours of sleep. So you may be wondering, how in the world are you supposed to get that many hours each night? Super tough. Let's start with setting a sleep schedule. Okay. Our mind and body thrive with consistency. One of the best ways to improve your quality and quantity of sleep is to stick to a schedule. That simply means going to bed and waking up at the same time every day. And here's the kicker, even on weekends. As you start to find your schedule, experts recommend not staying in bed, tossing and turning for more than 10 minutes. So if that's happening, we need to move on to some other tips, right? Practice a digital detox every night. When I say digital, I'm referring to all the many sources of blue light, such as your TV, your phone, your iPad, your Kindle, your computer. Studies have shown that any light exposure will decrease the body's natural production of melatonin, which helps us to fall and stay asleep. In fact, it is an important hormone in our entire sleep-wake cycle. More importantly, research has found that the light produced from our electronics, that's known as blue light, suppresses your melatonin even more. So that's why we highly recommend starting to practice a digital detox each night. Find a realistic time before your bedtime, maybe 30 minutes, maybe up to 90 minutes, to turn off all screens. Consider taking your devices into a different room to avoid temptation. Consider some activities you can add in place of screen time, such as reading from an actual book, with pages. Journaling or stretching. It's a great time to stretch before you go to bed. And then the third tip, some things that we can avoid tossing and turning, or if you already are not watching TV or being on your iPad or your phone before bed, let's look at your environment and try to create a calm and tidy environment to sleep in. This kind of can help keep your mind at ease and help you to fall asleep quicker. Of course, keep the lights and screen off or away. You can consider adding in some calming smells such as lavender. You can try some noise, like a fan, or get a noise machine that's made for sleeping. Um, while we're talking about fans, also optimizing the temperature in your bedroom, experts recommend a lower temperature of 60 to 67 degrees is optimal for your sleep cycle. And then lastly, limit activities outside of sleep that take place in your sleep space. A good example is not reading your book in bed. I'm guilty of that. And also, you may have to consider not having a very interesting book, because I confess that I only got 5 hours of sleep last night because I'm reading a really good book and I was reading it in bed. And I just kept reading until I realized it was 11:30 and I had to get up at 5. So that was a bummer. Last tip, or tip number 4, is to optimize your nutrition. Remember when we discussed how lack of sleep will shift your hormones and affect your food preferences and metabolism? Well, it goes both ways, meaning the food that you eat can also affect how well you sleep. Our dietitian and her husband experienced this firsthand, and I've had several clients use the continuous glucose monitoring devices. But when people eat a higher carb at night, their blood sugar stays elevated. Sugar at night, like ice cream, caused it to be high all night and decreased their quality of sleep. When they slept bad, their fasting blood sugar was higher when they checked it first thing in the morning. So you really want to aim to maintain a balanced diet throughout the day to help with your sleep. Focus on lean proteins, non-starchy vegetables, lower glycemic carbohydrates, and healthy fats. Be mindful of your sugar and alcohol intake, as alcohol and sugar definitely decreases the quality of your sleep. And then let's take a quick moment to touch on caffeine consumption. Imagine you grab that afternoon 3 p.m. cup of coffee and you think that is 5 or so hours away from bedtime, so I should be fine. Not so fast. Caffeine has a half-life of 8 to 12 hours, meaning that caffeine is still affecting you past midnight. This can decrease the quality of sleep and possibly cause an imbalance of your sleep stages. So be mindful of that and try to cut that caffeine consumption off earlier in the day and see if that helps. So we talked about 4 tips to help you improve your sleep. Let's talk about the amazing benefits that you'll start noticing. Improved functioning on a day-to-day task at work, increased energy, improved recovery after your workouts, muscle synthesis and fat loss. In other words, we're building muscle and it's contributing to fat loss, a better mood, improved overall health, and more. If you don't believe me, just try it. 7 to 8 hours of sleep. There is a whole podcast from our dietitian on the framework of sleep, which is a pillar of our nutrition program. It's the Nutrition Made Simple podcast, episode 5, and you can find that on wherever you listen to podcasts. I will go over real quick our 3 main principles. With all of the misinformation out there, it can feel very overwhelming trying to figure out where to start. So building your foundation, I want you to think about these 3 principles when you're trying to figure out where to start. And one simple place can be just to add more whole foods into your diet. Start choosing whole food options that are less processed foods. Processed foods are typically packed with sodium, fat, and sugar. So a simple way to start cutting that out is to start by reshaping your plate and filling them up with whole foods. We like to recommend a half a plate of non-starchy vegetables and then a quarter plate of lean protein and a quarter plate of your starchy carbs. And then just to be mindful and try to choose healthy fats, keep them at a minimum. Tip number 2 is to focus on balance. If you're following that plate method, you're automatically going to be following and having balance in your meals. But we also want to, once you get that down, start focusing on balanced snacks. So every time that you eat, you pair that meal and snack with all 3 of those macronutrients: protein, carbs, and fat. And then lastly, we want to, once we've kind of balanced our plate and then we are having protein, carbs, and fat with our snacks, then you want to start looking at how much sugar you consume throughout the day and see if you can't cut back on that in some ways. The American Heart Association recommends no more than 6 teaspoons for women and 9 for men. However, the average American typically consumes about 46 teaspoons per day. So that is way more than is recommended. So trying to cut back on that is super helpful. Let me see if I can find this chat box and make sure. I don't think we had anybody join live today. No questions. And just me today. So where should you start is a super good question. I want you to start with one thing at a time. Maybe it's something you already have in mind, or maybe it's something we discussed today that has to do with your sleep. But the best and fastest way to reach your goal is to work one-on-one with a nutrition coach to build an individualized plan just for you. If you're looking for that perfect plan that leads to success, the first step you have to do is to make a commitment to yourself. It's not simple. It's simple, but it's not easy, but we are always here to help. Our nutrition program has helped over 35,000 people around the world to take control of their health. But these are a couple of our Bandit nutrition clients that have had wonderful success. A free resource, I mentioned earlier, the specific episode on sleep, but Nutrition Made Simple is a podcast with several episodes and tons of inspiring stories and tips. So check that out. If you are ready to go on your own journey and you feel like you would like some accountability, you can scan this QR code here. I've got a seat for you in my office, and I would love to be your accountability partner and help you figure out where to start and where to go from there. So I hope y'all enjoyed this today. It was super quick because we didn't have anybody hop on. I will get this uploaded and see y'all later. See you next month. Next month is going to be on hormones. So that should be fun. See you in June, guys.